College in the Norment room, and we'll go ahead and get started. Again, good afternoon and welcome to this celebration of service to the college. Today, we're dedicating Ward Hall in recognition of David L. Ward, Jr. For more than 52 years, David has helped mold and shape our college from its infancy as a small industrial education unit back in the 1960s to today's comprehensive community college that serves over more than 10,000 students every year. I'd like to welcome a number of key folks. Our chairman of the Board of Trustees, Whit Whitley. I'm looking around, raise your hand so I can find folks. Great. We have several other trustees as well as two past trustees, Mayor Chuck Tyson and Ms. Carol Maddox. Past chairs, Bill Taylor is still on our board. We have our foundation president, Ms. Ann Shout. And we're very privileged to have with us Dr. Scott Rawls, who is a third president of Craven Community College and is today the president of Wake Tech Community College. Finally, Dr. Catherine Chu, who was my immediate predecessor at the college, had planned to join us, but she fell to a bout of flu and sends her best wishes from Charlotte. And she shared with me some thoughts and memories that, about serving with David, and I'll pass a few of them along during my remarks. First, a little bit about David himself, although I'm sure he needs absolutely no introduction. He's, of course, a native and a lifelong resident of New Bern. He is a Navy veteran, having served aboard a destroyer, and he attended UNC Chapel Hill, we're other Duke people, and earned his bachelor's degree in accounting. And then, of course, he followed the footsteps of both his father and his grandfather into the legal profession and earned his law degree from Duke University in 1962. Okay, now the Duke people can cheer. He and his wife, Elizabeth, as I understand, celebrated their 64th wedding anniversary last fall. And if my count's right, 3 children and 5 grandchildren. But let me first now go back to April 23rd, 1968. The college's founding board of trustees held an organizational meeting in what is now known as the Harvey Mansion. And many of those founders went on to contribute prominently to our college's storied history. They include visionaries like Lynn Kelso, Thurman Brock, and Dr. Charles Barker. Mr. Kelso would serve as the first chair of the board of trustees. Dr. Barker would serve the longest as a founding trustee until 1991. And of course, Dr. Brock was our first president, with his tenure spanning 22 years. Mr. Ward was present on that momentous evening. That night he was elected by the trustees as the college's general counsel, and his subsequent service to the college would eclipse all of those that were present at that meeting, a total of 52 years until his retirement at the end of 2019. Along the way, Mr. Ward was a principal advisor to the trustees during the vetting and selection processes for all 5 of the college's presidents, including me, and was a trusted mentor to each of them during their respective tenures, including me. Dr. Chu's notes included a memory of her first days at the college when she was told by a trusted colleague that she really needed to get to know David Ward as among her first priorities. I recall those same words being said to me 7.5 years ago by Kevin Roberts, who was then serving as our board chair. Like Catherine, I quickly understood why this had been great advice. David's mentorship to me has always been timely, patient, low-spoken, and always insightful. I trusted his steady hand, one that reflected decades of experiences as the college's counsel and as a highly respected community leader. Dr. Chu called him a rock that she often needed during tough moments, and I am grateful to have had that same rock to build upon. Indeed, our campuses themselves grew from the bedrock that Mr. Ward helped establish and nurture. To begin, the main campus location had to be chosen from among several proposed sites in Craven County, each of which had disparate merits and shortcomings. In short order, however, 100 acres here were acquired from Weyerhaeuser on the then outskirts of New Bern. This action was paired with a $500,000 bond referendum for funds to construct the first 3 buildings. A decade later, the present boundaries of our campus were set via a complex land swap that included a decommissioned section of Racetrack Road and its associated right-of-way. And I've been fortunate to hear a small portion of the tale of acquiring the land from the Havelock campus directly from one of the key people that made it happen. That campus, adjacent to Cherry Point, had been a military housing area owned by the Department of the Navy. The effort, which took more than 7 years to navigate, required an act of Congress requiring its support and action by local, state, and federal leaders, plus military leaders from Cherry Point up to the Pentagon itself. To say this was a complex undertaking would be an extreme understatement. To wit, the last deed restriction needed to secure that deal expired just 2 years ago. David's guidance was then pivotal towards placing buildings on the land he helped procure. A total of 12 were built from 1971 through 2019, the last of which was the Havelock campus's STEM Center, which was completed just in time for his retirement. All 13 buildings, include one he helped purchase, remain in use today. And finally, there's the Volt Center. Formulating the initial lease documents with so many stakeholders at the table, at first seemed like a daunting endeavor. David was his very best self during this process, and the lease for that building, enacted in 2019, has led to 4 more buildings since his retirement, with 2 more on the way. Today, our college infrastructure is valued at more than $100 million and supports more than 500 employees. More importantly, every year, 10,000 students receive a first-choice education and training aboard the college. Those of us old enough to remember the E.F. Hutton commercials from the 1970s can relate to an oft-repeated scene during trustee meetings that I have been part of. David usually sat 2 seats to the left of me at our round boardroom table. A low, even-toned voice would begin with, "I would advise that." Even the most spirited discussions would immediately hush, and all ears would turn towards David, straining to hear his next words. Like the E.F. Hutton commercial, when David spoke, the entire board and the leadership team listened. That rapt attention was the earned result of respect and reverence for the knowledge and intelligence that David always brought to the boardroom. In summary, through 5 decades, our college has prospered, and in no small part this is due to David's service. His lasting contributions to the college extend far beyond his professional work. He has been and is a generous philanthropist that has contributed greatly to benefit our college's students. In addition to funding individual scholarships, he created and has sustained a college foundation endowment. Under his leadership, Warden Smith has been the presenting sponsor of the Community Fabric Awards for 13 consecutive years. In 2011, the college's trustees honored Mr. Ward by dedicating the college's boardroom in Brock Hall in his name. In 2012, the college's foundation named him the Community Fabric Awards recipient for individual leadership. Today, we make one more tribute in appreciation and great esteem to Mr. Ward for his lifelong contributions to the college and to our community. On behalf of the college's trustees, our faculty, staff, and students, we dedicate this building, one of the original 3 built on the campus, as the David L. Ward Jr. Hall. I'd like to introduce now Mr. Jamie Norment to the podium.
This is not working.
It's now working.
Thank you, Dr. Staats. Dr. Rawls, trustees, thank you for coming. It's a real honor to be up here. You know, when I look back and I think of all the things I've learned from David over the years, the one that sticks with me the most when I face a tricky legal issue or some parliamentary procedure issue, not necessarily at the college, but often at the college Board of Trustees meetings, I'll say to myself, WWDD, what would David do? And by saying that, it really opens the door to all that I learned from David over the years. And as is so true, though, with David, the answer I get after asking that question is not necessarily the one I wanted, but it's often the best one for the clients and for me. And here we are in Ward Hall, in the meeting room named after his dear friends Patricia and Bill Nauman. All because of people like them making a collective commitment to the college and to the community. I think we all owe our appreciation to Dr. Staats and the trustees for making this honor happen. You know, Ward Hall, I think, is a testament to David's service to our community. But take a moment to think about the less obvious ways David has helped the college. Dr. Staats mentioned some of them. He worked with the founders of the college to make sure Public Radio East got and kept its license. And I think the PRE is a tremendous asset to the community today. He helped form the Craven Community College Foundation, which today is stronger than it ever has been. And what turned out to be a truly transformational event, echoing what Dr. Staats said, the Havelock campus. David, being a good Navy vet, decided I can take on the Navy. He cajoled, he negotiated, and eventually he beat down the Navy until they turned over that land to the college. And I think of all the lawyers and really all of the community college leaders, trustees, presidents, vice presidents, that have learned from David over the years about community college law. I can count at least 11 community colleges, some outside North Carolina, that are 1 degree separated from David, that his influence, either through his legal work or through his sage advice, has helped other people elsewhere that we don't even know, and that the community college system, I think, is all the better for it. And for that, we're all very grateful. Congratulations, David and family. I want to recognize Brad Evans, who like me has been at Ward & Smith and would like to say a few remarks.
Thanks, Jamie. I have the honor of speaking briefly about David on behalf of the firm, his firm, Ward & Smith, and I will say that I feel the same way today as I did performing for David about 23 years ago, which is I sure hope I don't let him down. In reflecting on this, it occurred to me that as we dedicate this building in honor of David and all that he's done for the college, his firm, Ward & Smith, stands as something of a monument to what he was able to accomplish in his professional life. Although David's forebears, as you know, practiced law in Craven County going back to the 19th century, David's practice began in the early 60s, and the firm Ward & Smith really came into being as it currently is in the early 70s. And what David and Troy Smith were able to build in the following 50 years truly stands as a testament to their creativity and their foresight, their dedication to their profession, and to helping people and the great men that they are. From 2, at that time, young men practicing in New Bern in the early 70s to now 100 lawyers and 150 staff members in 5 offices from the mountains to the coast, the firm owes its success in significant part to the person that David is. David led the firm as co-managing director for over 3 decades and oversaw industry-leading initiatives such as the employment of an office manager, which was unheard of among law firms at the time, centralized word processing and administrative work, and the closed compensation system that eliminated the typical law firm system of compensating lawyers based on business origination. This latter item continues to be nearly unique in the legal industry, although other firms have certainly taken notice, and it's created a platform for teamwork and collegiality at Ward & Smith that is second to none and makes the firm without question the best place to practice law in the world. That's the firm that David built. But what I think is an even greater monument to David than the firm itself are the people that he has touched through the law firm. That includes not only the 250 current employees, but the hundreds that came before in preceding decades. To a person, I can tell you that you will find among them uniform admiration, if not reverence, for David Ward. I'm no exception. Like most people, when I met David 23 years ago as a law school student, I was incredibly intimidated. And while on the other side of a legal matter from David, I had just cause to be intimidated, those who were not on the other side of a legal matter learned what I learned, that try as I might, he refused to be called Mr. Ward and insisted on being called David. That he was incredibly kind, gracious, and he was generous with his time, talents, and treasure. Upon starting work with the firm, David immediately involved me in a complex and interesting case, a huge vote of confidence for me, and an experience I still remember with great fondness and appreciation. But beyond that, David was the example for me and many others of how to treat staff, how to treat clients, how to treat those in need generally, whether they can pay for legal fees or not, and how to be involved in the community. And as a 25-year-old first-year lawyer, David not only introduced me to judges and the firm's longtime clients as his partner, but he also took me to court, and he invited me to events for Tryon Palace and for Craven Community College. So in that sense, I, like hundreds of other Warden Smith employees, and like many of you, I think, walk around every day as a little bit of a monument to David. Certainly not as impressive as the building that we are in, but part of his legacy nevertheless. And I'm thankful to God for that opportunity, and certainly hope that I can live up to his standards of working hard, taking care of clients, and looking after my colleagues. I hope we can all live up to that challenge that David sets for us. And on behalf of the firm, we wish our sincerest congratulations to David on the dedication of this building, and we hope that all those who utilize it and see his name on it will share our sense of pride in being part of his legacy. Congratulations.
I'm ready to hear a few words from David. Yes, sir. Notice how quiet the room got.
Yeah, they're waiting for me to fall. Thank you very much.
Microphone's not working, so.
First of all, let me thank all of you for being here. This is a wonderful tribute to me, but it's not just me, it's my family. A lot of you are part of my family, and thank you for being here. My wife has a saying that any conversation can be too long, so keep it short. But there are a few things that have been mentioned that I want to be sure that everybody understands. First, this college is a wonderful, wonderful asset to every single one of us and to this community. And it didn't happen just by chance. The presidents of this college over the years have provided leadership, direction, and toil. Because everything that happens here is not wonderful, marvelous, and kissable. We've had our ups and downs. I was thinking just the other day about a time when we had several lawsuits about some things that didn't happen, which is nice for me to say now. And we were going through the rigors of trying to deal with the attorney for the other side. And we were having a mediation conference in the federal court building downtown New Bern, better known as the old post office. And boy, we were slugging it out. And in came a clerk from the court's office and sort of was embarrassed to be interrupting us. And I said, well, what is it that you want to tell us? Well, the judge just called and said he had signed an order dismissing those lawsuits. I said, well, I guess that's pretty important. But, you know, back when the college got started, it was sort of a dream. It was something that everybody that was involved wanted to see happen. Money was scarce, and the state was undertaking something that they weren't real sure they could handle. Now, obviously, when I say that, the people that were pushing it from the state level were absolutely confident of what they were doing. But there came a time after Craven became an offshoot from Lenore that the state was about ready to decide they had enough colleges and they weren't going to have any more colleges. Well, you can imagine that that put a real damper on the enthusiasm of everybody that wasn't a college that wanted to be. And so I had a little conversation with my dad about, well, I don't understand why we can't be a college. So a couple of months went by, and my dad oftentimes went to Raleigh for a week or two, having spent a great part of his professional life in and around the legislature. So he came by my office, and at that time our office was down on Broad Street, across from where the First Citizens Bank is now. He said, "Now, what's the status about the college and when it's going to get to be a college?" I said, "Daddy, I don't know." And I told him what I just told you, that the state was kind of wishy-washy. He said, "Well, would they really like to be a college?" I said, "Yeah, we'd really like to be a college." He said, "Okay." We walked on out the door. About a week later, he came back. He said, "You're going to be a college." I said, "Okay." I said, "You know a whole lot more about that than I do." He said, "Just bide your time, it's coming." Sure enough, short time later, the powers that be decided we were going to be a college. And from then on, this place has grown. It is just magnificent in what it's accomplished. I tell you the story about the Havelock property. Not a very pretty story from the side of the Navy. But I really didn't have much to do with the ultimate decision and accomplishment of getting the property. We had a United States Senator who, a bit of a rough edge, understood how to get people's attention and understood that the golden rule in the Senate of the United States is that a senator can stop anything by the senator's self. I didn't know that. So here's what happened. The Navy had been jerking around the college and everybody that was interested in it. The college got the senator interested. And so the senator sent word to the Navy that they needed to come see him, and when they came, they needed to bring the deed and the man or woman who had authority to sign the deed and turn the property over to the college. And a date and time was set. So here comes this commander. Well, commander lasted about 10 minutes, long enough to tell the senator his name and his rank and why he was there. Senator didn't like that. Said, "I tell you what we're going to do here." Said, "I know what the Navy's got in their budget and in their Congress's requested appropriations for next year." Said, "You get two major items. One, you want to rebuild a railroad from Cherry Point to Camp Lejeune. And the other thing you want to do is you want to rehab the hospital at Camp Lejeune." And he said both of those are very needed, and both of those ought to be done. But let me tell you how it is. You don't have a petition in there for the railroad anymore. I said, "What do you mean, Senator?" He said, "I've taken it out." I said, "You can't do that." He said, "Oh, yes, I can. An individual senator can take back anything or cancel anything. I can't get anything approved by myself." And the guy just shook his head and he said, "Now go back up to the Pentagon and you get up with the guy and gal that can sign their names on that deed and you tell them that Friday morning at 9 o'clock, my office in Washington, have the deed and be prepared to sign it. Guy leaves, he goes back up to the Pentagon. They just poo-poo the senator. And so they sent another person down to tell him no. That lasted about 37 seconds. He said, you know, I took the railroad away from you, and I'm going to take the hospital away. He said, you got 10 days. And he gave him another date and said, you know, you go check the records and find out about the railroad and find out for your own satisfaction that I can do what I'm telling you I'm going to do. They didn't believe him. So they went back and checked, and sure enough, the railroad had been taken off the list. So by that time they got to thinking, well, maybe, you know, maybe we need to do a little deal here. So when the day came, here comes an admiral. He's the man that had the authority to sign his name. He signed the deed, we got the property. Now, I wasn't involved in any of that, but the senator told me that story himself, and I believe him. But that's the kind of work that you can't project you're going to get done until it has to be done. We have, at this college, has been through some really great times as it is now. But folks, I'm going to tell you, we've had some struggles. But the most interesting thing to me, above, and for those of you that know this is old hat. This board is appointed by 3 different entities: the school board, county commissioners, and the state, the governor. Well, we've had some wrinkles and some bumps, but we never had any real falling outs, and that's almost unheard of. But I think the reason for that is that everybody that's been involved with this place has wanted it to be better, greater, and to do more good in the community than any other function could. And I will now leave that piece of my short sermon to say to you, each and every one, I am overcome with appreciation. Many years ago, when the college named the meeting room for me, I was much younger, but I promise you, I appreciated that greatly. But this is a topper, and I truly appreciate it. It's been a wonderful run. I've enjoyed it, and I'm sorry to leave, but I think that better people are yet to come, and I've done mine. Thank you all very much.
So I'm going to defer to Jim. He can tell you one of these college stories about how we procured this. It's an interesting story, but we'll save that for another time. So our plan today is we're going to unveil it, take some pictures, and then from here we'll be finished for the day unless you want a cupcake, in which case you're welcome to go back in. And I encourage you to want a cupcake. Please. All right, David, on 3, we'll give this again. 1, 2, 3. We'll Photoshop the duct tape off the wall for the picture.
Thank you very much.
There we go.